Welcome to the Nashville Tribute Band Podcast, The Listening Room with Jason Deere. Coming to you from Nashville, Tennessee. Today's topic is
a one-of-a-kind interview with Tony Martin, one of the biggest hit songwriters in Nashville, Tennessee, a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and somebody who really doesn't do interviews. Brad Hull and I loved every second of hanging out with Tony, talking about life, love, religion, songs, and family. Such a great guy, such a great perspective, and a wise man. He's written 16 number ones, Just to See You Smile by Tim McGraw, Time is Love, Josh Turner, You Look Good in My Shirt, Keith Urban, Settle for a Slowdown, Dierks Bentley, No Place That Far by Sarah Evans. And his first number one was George Strait's Gotten Good at Goodbyes. But even more impressive than his number one songs and his gold and platinum records is his love for his family, for his church, for service, and for the gospel of Jesus Christ. You don't want to miss this. But first, the official clothier and tailor of the Nashville Tribute Band is the Cater Shop. That's Cater with a K. Catershop.com. If you see the Nashville Tribute Band and we look good, it's all because of the Cater Shop. You know, Brad and I hung out all afternoon with Tony, and we're going to pick up in the conversation here when Tony was talking about when he was a bishop in Nashville and people would roll into town telling him that the Lord sent him here to write songs. He's a funny guy. Get ready.
Did you tell him the same thing you told him back then?
Huh? What'd I tell him?
You told him, don't come to my ward telling me that the Lord sent you here.
Yeah, my Martin Harris story.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times he told you no before he said, all right, go ahead, sell all your wife's furniture and go to Nashville.
That's the saddest thing is that the size of the dream and the size of the talent are not always congruent, if you know what I mean.
No, and I'll tell you something else too, is a lot of times I've seen people get discouraged who are really good because they hear what they think it should be, but they've got the knowledge and they know what it is, but they haven't developed the skill and they haven't really polished that down. And when they put their song up against, you know, the real pros who've had a lot of success, and they go, wow, I can see that gap. And I go, no, put your head down and just keep doing it, and you'll be surprised. Those people ahead of you might not get better, but they'll get worse. And no, you'll get better. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
You know, the gap closes down. Yeah. So I've seen it the other way too. So when the other ones come and, you know, it's like singing. You know, some are really good singers. You know, some are, you know, they only hear themselves in the car while someone else is on the radio playing, and you think you sound like that.
Some people don't realize it's the poor rich plan. It's kind of the way this business works, and so you have to survive long enough to learn the craft, and that's what the impossibility is. What seems impossible.
Well, you got to. This is a thing where you got to start with the love of it. There's just some reason why you do it besides money. You did it by yourself. You did it when nobody cared. I always call that dancing in the basement, you know, and you just dance in the basement because you love dancing in the basement. But when the spotlight does hit you, we're going to see how many hours you've been dancing in the basement.
That's right.
How hard you've been trying at it, and what you've been doing.
And youth is an amazing thing. You know, to be too stupid to know you can't do it is a pretty awesome place to be.
Start when you're young. Yeah,
right.
You cannot. I look at a picture of me and my wife when we got first married, and I tell my kids all the time, you have no idea the things those two kids do not know.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for it.
Yep.
We just knew we liked hanging out with each other. We loved being together, and we loved each other, and we wanted each other to do good and be happy. And yes, that's all you knew. And then you figure out the rest. There's no way of knowing. And if anybody, you got to be enough so that the people who do know and tell you that's hard, you don't listen to that.
You've been a writer for a long time. You started out in newspaper, is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I went. My dad was in the music business, so my dad was a songwriter. We came up from Georgia when I was in third grade. And my dad gave it a year to be a songwriter, and then, like in a year he had Is Anybody Going to San Antonio on Charlie Pride and It's Not Me, and then he had hits on Merle Haggard, It's Not Love But It's Not Bad, If We're Not Back in Love by Monday. So he had a career. He was a songwriter. So I grew up
watching that.
Yeah, and they were in my house. I saw Merle Haggard in my house, and too long a list to give you of some of the Hall of Fame type of songwriters. But that was what my dad did. The only advice anybody ever gave me was, can you go bounce that ball outside? But because I love basketball, I was just playing basketball and stuff like that. So then I went, when I went out to BYU, started as an English major, realized that people don't even appreciate you correcting their grammar, let alone want to pay you for it. And so I switched over to journalism and then started doing the newspaper and then got a job in Chicago and was working for a newspaper out there and would visit my dad down here, and we were kind of remodeling his house. And the only kind of songs that I wrote were like parodies and funny songs, just making fun of other stuff, because that was kind of funny around the newsroom and stuff about current events and things. And my dad heard some of those, and he said, have you ever thought about, trying to do it, a serious song? And I thought, no, I didn't really do it, And so while I was there, I taught myself 3 chords, which I still use today. It's been worth all the effort that I put into it. I've added, I think I have added maybe 3 more. But I had the 3 chords, and so I started writing some songs. And the 10th one I wrote, literally, the 10th song I wrote was Baby's Gotten Good Goodbye. Now, I left. I didn't, I just left. But my dad really liked that one, and he was working with somebody. He used to call them text nobodies. I got a text nobody here. When a singer came and wanted to try to get into the business, you need a demo. You need you singing, and he didn't see them as nobodies, but you start out as nobody. And so he had this guy, and he said, man, you ought to do this song. So he sang the song, and then some, through a lot of nice things to happen, which I have absolutely no control over, and or you just thank your Heavenly Father for. That ended up in the hands of George Strait, and then he cut it. So I'm up in Chicago. My dad calls me and said, hey, I sent you a cassette tape of a guy singing your song, but don't pay no attention to it. George Strait just cut it.
Wow.
So I was like, okay. So I knew what an album cut back then was. Each side on an album royalty rate was a nickel back then. And and we've got all the way up to 9.1 cents. So, you can see how far we've come since the late 80s.
Since the 80s.
From bubble gum to a candy bar.
Yeah, so I'm going, all right, an album, I know what an album's going to make, and it's not going to change everything for me. And then he calls and says, you got the first single. So I'm thinking, okay, well, now that can, now my hobby could pay better than my job. But one song does not a career make. So I was still kind of, just sort of holding where I was at. And then my dad called me and said, hey, a newspaper in Franklin, the Review Appeal, do y'all remember the Review Appeal? Was more like a bi-weekly or something like that. Said they called out, because I always put in applications when I would go places to try to get another job. Because I don't know if you've been to Chicago, but it is cold. And it's a shame, they got a bad deal. For a place that is that cold in the winter, is that hot in the summer. Like, that's not a fair thing at all, right? And so my dad called me one time and said, hey, this newspaper called you and was looking for you. And I said, oh, man, you didn't tell him I lived in Chicago. And he said, oh, no, I told him you wasn't here right now. So I got in the truck, and I said, okay, told my wife, I said, I'm gonna drive down there and see if I can get the job, and if so, then load up this other truck and, bring it down. So I came down, I got the job. In the truck drive down, I wrote a song that Tanya Tucker cut.
No kidding.
Yeah. And so then,
crazy, she walked out with an armful of Grammys this year. Isn't that crazy? She's still rocking.
I tell you, she's one of those people with the passion. They just do it. They do it for the sheer love of it. She's been doing it this whole time that no one gave her any attention anymore.
Yeah.
She never stopped. She's been doing the same thing. And a better writer than people give her credit. She's very creative. So we come down, and then I wrote like a couple more. I got a Willie Nelson cut, and I got a Waylon Jennings.
Wow.
And then the Waylon didn't make the record. The Willie only made it on maybe the cassette, but not the album. It's like, made it on one, didn't make it the other. Have you ever had deluxe, where you get a cut on the deluxe? Yeah, you try to tell yourself that, you got something, you got to pay extra to get my song.
But only a fraction of the people heard it, right?
Yes, and you got to go to Target, and you can't buy it anywhere else. Whatever the deal is, on the deluxe. And so I lost that, and I was just album cut on that. And then so this is then it was nothing for 5 years. I mean, nothing. I didn't get a cut. I didn't get a whiff. I didn't get anything, because there is still the reality that you only have a handful of songs, and you can't have too many. My dad used to always say, you can never have too many good songs. Just put your head down, just keep writing them, just keep writing them, keep writing
And
them.
no matter how good you are, there's still just a certain percentage of them.
No.
You have to fire out that many to come up with the good ones,
Yeah, no, and it's like, and then some of the ones that you like the most, nobody else cares about. They don't care, and then, a lot of times they'll like, oh, I love this one. You go, really? Oh, that one, okay. That one, I was just having fun, and I just knocked that out, But you aren't writing for yourself. You are writing. There is this in between you and the audience when you're sitting in the room by yourself and you're writing. For me personally, I have to write what's interesting to me. I can't sit there and write, things that don't. Even if I'm with another artist writing for them, I kind of I got to find something to keep my interest. And you're trying
even if it's not them.
Oh no, I don't care. There's it's got to be something.
Let me ask you this: you were watching your dad do his job when you were a kid, and you were having artists and writers coming in and out of the house. At what point did you realize, man, this isn't just a bunch of guys sitting around banging on guitars and doing something. If you're going to do well at this, there's a craft to it, and there's a science to it. When did that become reality?
I don't know that it ever did when I was young. I mean, I could pretty much see that write is a verb. You have to write. You can't just be a writer and never write. So, if you're going to have to write. But this is the only thing I can really tell anybody. As I have in my bones, I have a sense and a feeling of what a really good country song is. Now, it might bleed over into other things. I know what a good song is outside of that, but I really know what a good country song is because I just grew up with it in the air. And it wasn't just being played off of the albums that your parents have or anything. I had the next level in which I heard them play each other their songs. Back then they called them guitar pools because you can just reach across and just, oh, that's a cool song. Here, let me play you mine, or pull the guitar away from them and play yours. And they would say things like, man, Sonny, play that song, or Mickey, play that song. And you'd hear their hits, you'd hear the things that everybody loved, you'd hear their new things that nothing ever came, or you heard the new thing that next thing you know, it was all on the radio. So you just heard it, and it was just it was a soundtrack of my life just around. And so, I knew they'd do it. There is a certain level of talent. There were just some people who were just talented. Mickey Newberry's wife was LDS. And Mickey would always be around our house, and they were there. And she was a concert pianist, right? Like trained, put the music up and just play and play. And she'd go in our baby grand in the big room, and she would sit there and play when they were visiting, and play it, and then get up and leave, and she'd be in the kitchen. And then one time I was there, and Mickey got up off the couch after she left, went over to the piano, started going plink, plink. And he's a guitar player, but he started plinking around on the piano until he slowly was playing what she was playing. And then he started moving off of that, and then pretty soon he had his own little melody kind of that was a derivative of that, and then was writing a song on it. And she was in the kitchen, and I remember her looking at my mother going, I hate it when he does that. No training whatsoever. He did that. Yeah. So you got to have talent, but you also know that they had to work hard. It wasn't going to just write itself.
Yeah.
The inspiration was, I don't even call it inspiration. I call it a reason. I need the reason to write. Yeah. I know I can do it. I know I can sit in the room and do it. I'm not saying I guarantee it's a hit, but I know kind of what it is. You know what it is, Jason, Brad. Y'all know what it is. Yeah. But you need the reason to do it.
Do you ever think about the people on the other end of those Craco speakers in Mississippi and South Dakota, and just whoever these songs get to? Do you ever think that ahead? Or
sometimes you can kind of think that way. You think, this is. I think you keep them in your mind as, I think at some point you are the audience too. There is what you like, and you don't get away from that. It's hard for you to create things that you don't like and you don't enjoy. Yeah. You don't know what it is. How do you know what's good? Somebody's got to tell you some genre or some type of music. If they say, that's great, and you go, I don't know. Then how am I supposed to go over there and do it if I don't know what it is? So I always imagine myself in the audience. I'm just writing, come on, Jason, we make demos and we do this so we can make music for our car. Yeah. So we can listen to it in our car, and then it's really nice that some guy comes along, or some girl, some great singer goes, I'll give you a dime for every one of them. If I can use that, I'll give you a dime for every one I sell.
Well, and fun. We're all told, we're all told as songwriters that you've got to satisfy that 5 o'clock drive time, to give somebody the reason to get out of work and to do a little hallelujah before they get home or whatever. And so it's all about fun, but it can't all be about fun, and it can't all be about those yeehaw up tempos. That's the one thing I love about country music. Is there's certain concepts that are the foundation of country music that are the reason that people listen, and it's because it's their life is being tied in, and that's why country works when it really works, when the song of the years come along.
And to me has always been, all music is great. It's great. But when country music's great, there's just no touching it, all right? It just has this real thing. It's not necessarily designed to get you up and dancing or moving or thing. And I would always say, to this day, people go, what's country music versus pop or anything? And they'll go, banjo, fiddle. And I go, Willie Nelson had neither one in his band. Mm-hmm. Country music can do things others can't. Country music, they go, well, be hip. I said, I don't know if we can be hip. We can be cool. Mm-hmm. Can't be hip. Mm-hmm. I said, but here's what, pop rock, they can be hip, but they can't be sentimental. Mm-hmm. You can't be up there rocking a stage talking about your mama, missing your mama and stuff. That's not gonna work.
What a great point.
So it's allowed to do it, and even in the world that is changing now and taking on some different influences, rap influences of the way they phrase. Mm-hmm. But I can't say that I wasn't influenced by Bob Seger, and some of the rock things that I grew up listening to, and a lot of the Southern rock and what have you. But at the core, when you break it down, what are they talking about? Are they saying in the club, in the club, in the club? Or are we saying in the truck, in the truck, in the truck? Right. They're always inside, we're outside. Right. So
there's an article recently written about the similarities of hip-hop and country in the last several years, and how the beat's all in the 2/4, and it's the only two genres right now where the artists take great pride in where they come from and who they came from, and there are some similarities, but there, when it comes to the building blocks of the foundation of country music, there's several things like hard work means something, and I'm not sure that's true in hip-hop. Family and where you're from and who your friends are, and that kind of stuff is probably there, but the one thing that's always got to be okay in country music, I learned this early. There's an old guy named Doodle Owens. I don't know if you remember Doodle.
Oh, yeah, I knew Doodle.
I wrote a lot of songs with him when I first got to town, and he and I talked and laughed about this. It's got to be absolutely okay in country music to be in a bar slobbering drunk on Saturday night. But it better be okay that you're sitting in church the next morning, even if you're hungover. Those have both got to be okay. So if you got a brother or a cousin and you're bad-mouthing them about being in a bar on Saturday night, or you're bad-mouthing them about being in church, you're in trouble in country music, So those things have got to be okay. So, and I just love the common man thing.
I think you hear a lot of that stuff in rap. Because when it's back to what it originally came out of, just like what country originally came out of, it came out of working class, poor class, honest. This is what we're dealing with. This is life. And I'm not saying I love just straight rock and roll all day long. I'll take just straight rock and roll. But each has its thing of what it does. When it does it best. And that's you gotta hand it to each one. But going back to just being a writer, there's something that you naturally fit into, and then trying to go counter to that. I think you're in for an uphill battle. I think you got to start.
I think hip hop and rap, the motivations might be different for being proud of your family and where you're from and your mama and stuff like that. Where you're from seems to be more territorial a little bit in those kind of things than not always, but it seems like people are proud of digging in and making something out of nothing. The poor man, the little man is always, especially the little man who turns to God and turns to helping his brother, has always been a big part of country music. Always love that.
I think, to me, and I came up, kind of, I don't know, they would call it old school or whatever, but to me, I always felt in a lot of ways, country could be conversational. Just, to me, I like it best when it sounds like somebody's talking, expressing some honest emotion. And the melody carries a lot of that and what have you, but that says something that kind of like, going back to the old country song, Merle Haggard, You Sang My Life, that's what people, they connect to more than anything. When they're out there singing along, they're singing themselves. People vote for themselves. They vote with their dollar, they vote for themselves.
Well, in popular music, Jackson Browne, Linda Ronstadt, the Eagles, Barry Manilow. Those are country artists. And the songs that were the biggest to them and the way they related today, they would be country artists.
Today, today, because and that's the way things kind of slide and move around. It's a fluid thing. I remember back when I was living in Hendersonville, and a couple came down from I think they're from like Toronto, Canada, and his wife was incredibly talented, really good singer, really good piano player, and came down for her to kind of get in the business. They had some little kids. They lived in a little apartment. I went over there so she wouldn't have to tote her keyboard someplace. And so I sat down with her and her husband, and it's like, play this song. So she played me some country songs that were just, they were kind of corny. They just kind of, just felt like somebody's going, when people try to talk Southern?
Yeah.
All right, this is what a Southerner sounds like. I'm giving you the sound right now. My kids, who are from the South don't even talk like me. They call this country. And, it just felt like somebody's imitating country music, playing it. And for the first time ever, I just thought, man, some kind of came to me. I just said, I want you to just play me your favorite thing you've ever written. Not your favorite that your dad likes or anybody like you. What's the favorite thing? And she go, well, it's really not country. I said, I should play me your favorite thing. She starts playing on this keyboard a beautiful hymn. It was incredible, all right? And I went, that's fantastic. You got another one of those? She played me another one. Then you really find a test. So play me another one. Just play me a verse and a chorus. Just play me the beginning. So started playing me these hymns. I said, I'm sorry, man. That's what you are. There it is. I don't know if there's two pennies to rub together in the whole business. I have no idea. I've never done it. I said, but that's what you are. And I tell you what, you should sing them. You just sing them. This is before everybody could just make their own records cheap. And I said, this is what you are. Now, the bad news is you might not make a bunch of money here in Nashville doing it. The bad news is for me is nobody's going to sing my songs in the next world. They're going to sing yours. Angels will sing yours.
Wow.
They're not singing mine.
Wow.
They're not singing mine. So I think at some point you have to be honest with what it is that is at the core of you, and then you work, then go working on that.
I love that. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So you've had 16 number one hits at least, right? Maybe more.
Yeah, 16. Yes, for a little while the internet had me down for maybe I don't know what it was, 12, 13, whatever. Also had me working for Time Magazine. I've never worked for Time Magazine. I don't know how that got on there. I always go, the internet. Well, you got a 50-50 shot of it being true. But it had me down for less. And I remember I paid a kid like $20, like a deacon.
Yeah.
He's like 12. He goes, you can get on and put them on there. And he said, somebody said, what do you care? I said, because they're hard to get.
Yeah.
That's why I want them to count.
So what is your favorite song that you've written that's been recorded by another artist, would you say?
No, that's like picking, what's your favorite child, man?
Okay.
People are sometimes they'll call, their songs children. And I go, yeah, you're just hoping that they get out of the house and earn a living. Yeah.
Go make some money.
I have so many of them that just lay around the basement being an artist. I'm artistic. I don't need that. So, I'm automatically going to tell you I'm going to love what made me the most money. All right? So Just See You Smile would get up there real quick just because it continues to make a lot of good money and does really well. My latest one on the radio becomes my immediate favorite. It's like watching your son score a touchdown, to win the game. That's my favorite for this weekend. But I don't know that I have a favorite. A lot of times I have a new fave. That's about as close as I can come. Or I've had songs that I truly love. Like I'll give you an example. I wrote a song with Wendell Mobley and Neil Thrasher called "See You When I See You." That was just ended up being an album cut on Jason Aldean. And I've just always loved the song. It's just like one of my favorite things. It came from a place for me, riding around as I do in my car, and it just started gelling. And I got with those guys and wrote it. And if I said, that's my, I don't know if I had a favorite. Well, I'd be trying to beat it, wouldn't you?
Yeah, sure.
Try to write another one.
So have a better kid.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. I'm going to say a song title, and you give me like the 1, 2, or 3 words that just come to mind immediately. God and Goody Goodbyes.
That's got me worried. Maybe My Baby. That was it. Maybe My Baby was, that's got me worried thinking my baby. And my brother Troy said, what, man, why we just said, maybe my baby. Put it in. I said, okay, that's cool. Let's put that in there. And for a long time, everybody going, man, we like it, maybe maybe my baby song.
That's cool.
You know, I've never told you this, so this is going to probably sound silly, but that in January, about the middle of January, I flew out of the MTC and went to Las Vegas, met my mission president, and he sent me right away to be trained by this guy, Elder Arnold, and we went to an area that had not had missionaries in it for 9 years called Washoe Valley between Reno and Carson, and it was freezing cold. I mean, coldest I've ever been in my life. There's a cowboy every mile and a half, and it was just lonely, big old cold valley. And out there tracking the one song that was a hit on the radio right before I went into the MTC. Literally, I sang it all day long. My companion was like, "Dude, you got to get that country music out of your brain." There it was, "What a rotten day this turned out to be," and that's what tracking was there. It was every day was pretty rotten.
Well, you know, it's like I was riding around in a truck. I had no radio that worked in the truck. It was like a '73 Chevy, two-tone green, and I was riding around covering news stories and doing my thing. And I just thought to myself, well, that'd be a great opening line. Would be what a rotten day this turned out to be, because I'm in traffic with all these people coming home from work, and I'm thinking I gotta hit at least 60% at a rotten day. So I go home and I'm sitting there. So I pick up the guitar and I just hit the D, one third of the chords I knew. I hit the D and I just said, what a rotten day this turned out to be. And I had nothing. And then I just went, what a rotten day this turned out to be. What a rotten day this turned out to be, which going from D to G, so because kept doing it over and 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 over. Finally, my wife stuck her head in from the kitchen and said, would you please sing something else? You're bringing me down. And so I thought, okay, what a rotten day
I'm
this
doing
turned
my
out
job.
to be. So then actually, okay, you want to get in the head? Okay, this is how you write a song. So what a rotten day this turned out to be. That's what I want, right?
Yeah.
So what's the next line? Why is it rotten? So I'm getting there. Okay, well, what makes a rotten day? I wanted to do it because everybody going home. I can't just be their rotten day.
Yeah.
It's got to be really rotten. It's like, well, okay, so somebody's got to leave or somebody's got to die.
Yeah.
And I ain't a good enough picker to play bluegrass. So nobody's going to die. I always want to write one good bluegrass song where I put everybody on a train and everybody dies and just say the perfect bluegrass song. So, but it sounds happy, right? And so I said, I still can't believe she leaves so easily, right? I had to make it rhyme.
Yeah.
So then when I hit that, I just kept playing that over and over until I was thinking, okay, why was it so easy? And so I kept thinking, I thought, boy, if my wife was to leave me, what would worry me the most? That she'd be mad, yelling at me, crying? No. The opposite of love isn't hate. The opposite of love is indifference.
Yeah.
Well, she walked out and was like, no crying, no anything. So then I just put that in there, and then that went to the, I just built it one thing to the next, where it's going to go.
Amazing.
One thing you've always done, and you certainly did on that song, and I wish I would have done earlier in my career for sure, is that I was always going for these amazing melodies, and Straight doesn't cut songs that are not the way he'd say them. And right in that range, he's not a singer at all. And so but you've written that. The reason that song feels so good is because the song is just the way it's sung just the way you'd say it,
Yeah, like I say, it's about all I can do. Number one, I've written with some people who are great melody people, and I've had some of my melodies be hit. I always say I have 5 melodies, and I've had a hit on 4 of them. So let's go. I got one more. To me, George Strait's always been like the Frank Sinatra.
Yes.
I think, he fits this country thing. It's just so smooth and just so good, and it's just so honest that the song comes across.
Yep.
Kenny Chesney, to me, does the same thing. They just are great interpreters of a song. They don't try to put any more in it or do anything to where the attention isn't on the vocal as far as what it's doing, vocal backflips, or sounds like Goofy being thrown down a stairwell.
Yeah.
It just sounds, they're communicators. And those are my favorite singers.
I think Linda Ronstadt did that, and she could sing anything.
Yes.
But she kept it right. I mean, every single song, she's in a scope of complete limitations to how she can communicate that song.
And communicating the songs. Now, other people, it's something else, and the song, serves a different purpose. I mean, Freddie Mercury, can do all this stuff, and that's part of it. You're like, wow. But within country music, going back again, you're communicating a thought, a feeling, of something. And so, I love those singers that are great communicators.
Just to see you smile.
Mark Nessler's a genius.
Yeah, he's a melodic genius. I walked in the room, we were going to put a bridge on another song that we were going to demo that day that we thought would be good for Tracy Byrd. And I walked in the room, and he was just kind of noodling on that melody. And he said, is this, and he kind of did the melody of the chorus. Do, 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 do. He says, is that too sing-songy? I said, about $1 million worth.
That's right. That's right.
So that's how I always think of it. And then, so we got on the idea, and we wrote actually the first verse and the last verse. We had them together. Played like both those verses together and played the chorus and went, wow, that's great. It's only a minute. So then we had to go to work. But
was that shuffle groove in your demo? Was that part of what you heard from the beginning?
Oh yeah, no, that was it. In fact, back then a banjo was a joke, right? Mm-hmm. To put a banjo in a song, everybody be laughing. How do you know it's a banjo player at your door? Pizza. So pizza's here.
Sorry, Carl Jackson. Sorry.
But it was just out of style.
Right. Of
like
course.
right now, fiddle. You just don't hear a lot of fiddle. But I'm going to tell you, the fiddle's going to show up and hard real soon. But we were sitting there, and Chip Hardy, who was the plugger and was at the studio with me and Mark, was my plugger and everything. He goes, well, this would be great with a banjo. And a lot of the band, started laughing, That'd be like saying, this would be great with a kazoo. Yeah. And everybody was laughing. But actually, most people don't realize is before Mark, my co-writer, was a guitar player, he was a banjo player in a bluegrass band. If you even watch him play, he still has those two bottom fingers. He still holds it like that. But he didn't think it was fun. He thought it was deadly serious. But the best thing, our fiddle player, Wanda Vick, said, I have one in the car. Now, this is in the heat down here in the South. I'll tell you how out of style it was. Somebody left it in the car, 90 degrees, and said, oh, it can't hurt. And it's supposed to sound like that. But she came in and put the banjo on.
It's amazing that more songs are not written with that groove, because the lyric is great, the melody is great, but that groove, you just cannot stop grooving to it because it's just so good, So you had 1 out of 3 things knocked over the fence when you got on that groove before you even started.
Well, you have to have all that. It all has to come, and it all has to fit together. And then, it's almost as if it has always existed. By the time you're done with it, you know what I mean? It's like you don't.
That's put into words. That's a great way. That's when you've got something. It's all about math. I hated school. They said, "Oh, you got to learn math because it'll apply to everything in your life." And I thought that's the stupidest thing I ever heard when I was in the 7th grade. But it's true. It's the math of the combination of synergy of melody, lyric, laying over the chord structure. It's all these things. The math we're putting out.
And the right word on that chord change can change everything. One simple word in front of it. I'll jump ahead on one of your songs. The thing that Tom Shapiro and I wrote with Sarah Evans, No Place That Far. There's a place in the chorus where, I would, if I had to run, if I had to crawl. And of course, the chorus is starting like that, and you're going, oh gosh, that's the biggest cliche in the whole world. So then it's like, with if I had to swim 100 rivers just to climb 1,000 walls. And Shapiro to this day will always come and goes, you saved us with the word just.
Yeah.
Because if I had to swim 100 rivers just to climb 100 walls, kind of just all of a sudden gave it a lift, and it was in this place right there where it needed to be. And then suddenly what's old becomes new, becomes something else. Because in the end, we're not doing new chords. You're not doing new notes.
Or new words.
New words, new notes, or anything. Yeah, I give songwriters gifts all the time. I give them dictionaries and say, every song you will ever write, some assembly required. And we're not singing about new things either.
Yep.
These are all kind of, so what does everybody want? Everybody wants the same but new. They want new but the same. And so you've got to find some way to kind of get that same thing across.
I think everybody that knows you in the music industry probably considers you not only a philosopher, but also a
hillbilly philosopher,
a wordsmith. You are a absolute master of words.
I like words, but I don't like them so much that I want to have all of them in there. I want the right ones. I want the right ones. But the right words don't come until you get the right thought, the right message. And then it creates, and people go, well, what are the rules? And I'm always like, do not pay attention to any music roll rules listeners don't pay attention to, number one. Because Just See Smile, you realize how much that does not rhyme in the chorus? It does not rhyme. It does not hit any of the rhymes where you think, just to see you smile.
I'd do anything.
That you wanted me to, right? We're going to the two, right?
Yeah.
That's what you're expecting. When all is said and done.
I'd never count the cost.
Yep.
It's worth all that's lost. That's the only rhyme. Cost and loss is it. I call it the Jetson rhyme scheme. Here's George Jetson. his wife, daughter Judy, and then he goes, his boy Elroy. That's it. That's the whole, and that's it. That's the only rhyme in the whole song. His boy Elroy. So you don't pay any attention to that kind of stuff. And so once you have your message, then once you start writing the song, the amazing thing is the actual song starts creating the rules.
Yeah, you
can't cross the song.
You're a funny guy. We haven't gone to a bunch of funny places yet in this conversation, but man, you're one of the funniest people I know. So comedic timing is not any different than timing in the songs. But I'll never forget you'd been a seminary teacher, and when I got called as an early morning seminary teacher, I was teaching Old Testament, and I think you wrote Jacob's Ladder when you were teaching Old Testament.
Old Testament, I got It's On Your Head, Jacob's Ladder. I got all things with kind of Bible-y.
I remember we were talking about something about how getting up early in the morning, early bird gets the worm and whatnot. We said, yeah, when you're a seminary teacher, you do some fishing. And you said, yeah, you get a whole Mesopotamia. Tony's always got me laughing about something like that. But you look good in my shirt.
You Look Good in My Shirt was the story that sticks out on that is we wrote the song and everybody really loved it, because once again, it's just that straight up rock and roll, nothing, it just feels really good, and it has this thing of, a couple getting back together, and that's always a good feeling and kind of thing. And, but we wrote it, and then, everybody's like, took it to Keith, and Keith was like, no, I'm doing something else. And then he changed producers, and that producer would bring it, and I'm doing something, and then another one. Finally, he's like, okay, everybody keeps giving me a song, I'm going to do it. So it ends up on Golden Road, his kind of breakthrough album, but it just sits on the album, right?
Yeah.
Just
never single,
goes away. He does another album, then he does like a greatest hit kind of collection, calls it 17 Kids and Counting. He puts a new song on there to be like a single, puts that out. Then somewhere, too long a story to tell, which once again I have nothing to do with, because I go home and go to sleep. Other people work the swing shift. And they decide, hey, let's go back and put that out and put it on this greatest hits, reprint it up, call it 18, cross out 17, write 18. But he wanted to do it how he was doing it in his live show. He said, not like I did it on the album, I want to do it more like I do on a live show. So he re-recorded it. He re-recorded it and then put it out. And I tell people to this day, I would never even think to pray for that.
Yeah.
Oh, who's going to go bother God?
Well,
and say a song 4 albums ago.
Yeah. Anyone who didn't understand, to get a song one time on an artist like Keith Urban's album is something to get him to cut it twice. 10 years apart or whatever
I think it's
it is.
6 years.
6 years out of the
6 years. 6 years. And then it does really well. And that's one of them, like I play, that's the song that most people, they recognize that song right off, because Keith is such a worldwide. I can play that about anywhere.
Oh yeah,
other countries, and they
Third Rock from the Sun.
Third Rock from the Sun was I write weird songs, all right, like just because it's fun, and I like I told you before, I have to be interested, and so this concept with Sterling Whipple and John Greenbaum of cause and effect, like one thing goes through, one thing causing another thing, causing another thing, causing another thing. And the best thing about it was when we got to the place where we went, hey, it's back at the beginning. The sheriff at the beginning, he's the one ducking his wife. We got to call the sheriff, we can't find, he's the one ducking his wife. And, I get, just to go to kind of, church things, so a lot of times even my wife would be like, oh, why do you even, say bad thing, like somebody buying a beer or something like that. And I go, well, but if you'll notice in mine, when they do bad things happen. I can't do that.
You're not glorifying it.
I can't do it.
Yeah.
Number one, I don't drink, so I don't know what that's like. So I don't feel like it's an honest place. But, I got some addiction issues, like that, when I was growing up, my grandfather, different people had these kind of things. So it doesn't look fun and funny to me, So I kind of write it from where I come from. But that, to me, that Third Rock was that was just a lot of fun. Then it was like, once again, I don't think anybody's gonna do it, but it made a lot of noise, like going around Music Row. Everybody was kind of like, oh, this is, have you heard this one? It's weird, it's a crazy song. And then Joe Diffie's producer, Johnny Slate, said, man, bring that over here, I'm with Joe Diffie. And said, but bring some other songs. So I brought a song that's on that same album called I'd Like to Have a Problem Like That. I'm thinking, this is perfect for Joe. I didn't know Joe would go for Third Rock. And so I played the songs, and Joe loved, I like to have a problem like that. So I thought, okay, well, this is great. And then as I left, Johnny came up and said, if you will give me Third Rock, I'll make sure he cuts that one too. 2 for the price of one. Yeah. And I keep my $1.
Yeah,
I'm all right. You know.
And Joe can continue to grow his mullet.
I tell you what, he's a heck of a golfer.
He's one of
we wrote we wrote a little bit together. We wrote I'm gonna cuss on your thing.
Give a Damn's Busted.
My Give a Damn's Busted. Yeah, we wrote that.
Well, listen, he's one of the best singers ever. I mean, Ships That Don't Come In is one of the best country songs.
And I'm telling you, if it was somebody who had been, like a bigger name at the time, that would have been Song of the Year. Paul Nelson, I don't know who else wrote it with him, but I know Paul did. Joe Diffie, we had a song that's on the same album, the Tim McGraw Everywhere album that Just See Smile is on, called I Do But I Don't, which was the first song that me and Martin Nessler ever wrote. And at the time, Byron Gallimore, Tim McGraw's producer, was holding it for Tim, and Johnny Slate once again called up on New Year's Eve. Said, we're in the studio, come down here, I'm cutting this, I Do But I Don't. I said, you can't have it, it's on hold, I promised they could have it, you can't have it. And he said, come down here, man, we'll cut it. And Joe, you should hear Joe sing. I said, absolutely not. I am not going to listen to Joe singing. They said, why? I said, because I'll let you have it.
Yeah, because it'll be the greatest thing you've heard.
Yes, I said, oh gosh, no, I can't do it. Can't do it.
And then your hook inspires somebody, and 139 episodes on NBC from 1996 to 2001 becomes a hit TV show.
Yeah, they took the title and then paid us like the song was being played.
That's pretty awesome.
On the deal. Oh, right, it beats a paper route. Yeah. I just get this little check that comes every week, and that it's in syndication, so it still still pays some royalties. And people are like, oh, it's real. I said, no, it just barely beats a paper route.
Yeah,
but it's good. It's I didn't do anything for it.
A long time ago, I wrote with one of those guys from the Rembrandts. It was way back in the '90s, back when they first had that hit. I can't imagine what Friends has done to those
Friends.
guys.
Yeah,
can't imagine.
Oh no. Well, the lady. I'm sorry, I cannot remember her name. You can look it up. She just passed away. But she wrote September, right?
No
These great Earth, Wind, and Fire songs.
And Fire, yeah.
Right, okay? But she's known for the Friends song.
That's so
where
funny.
she just kind of wrote the lyric, and then the Rembrandts did it and said, oh, we're going to make it a whole song and make it this whole thing. But that's the one she was, the most known for.
Settle for a Slowdown.
Settle for a Slowdown, brand new singer, comes in with his producer. Never written with either one. I'd known Brett Beavers and friends with him. He's a great dude. Him and his brother Jim Beavers, great guys out of Texas. Comes in and they go, hey, we'll write with this singer we got, Dierks Bentley. And so we sit in there and write. But it was like he was already putting out his first album. So it was all kind of like done. So we were just sitting there kind of trying to figure out, kind of what to write. And I think maybe Brett had said something like, I'd settle for a Slowdown, kind of thing. I think he might have had the actual title of it. And so we kind of wrote that. But I will tell you this straight up. If there's a nicer human on the planet Earth than Dierks Bentley, I don't know that I've met him.
Wow.
So he is automatically the nicest in Music Row. I mean, he's just a great human being, regular guy.
He's got this focus because Luke Wooten's a good friend of mine who produced that first record with Brett, and so Dierks was around Luke's studio a lot back in the day and early on, and he had this. I used to go watch him play hockey. He was a kid from Arizona, played on that city hockey league.
Yeah, huge hockey fan.
Yep, and but he had this. I mean, he was the great hang, sweetest guy in the world, super nice. But he had this focus about him and this look in his eye that you knew he was going to do it. And you don't see that in artists very often.
No, and you knew, when they come in, the certain ones will have a star quality. They kind of command a room.
Sure.
But to also know who they are, what they love. He's very influenced by bluegrass, but he likes some rock elements and he likes the country. And I mean, he's true to this whole format, loves the whole thing, loves the whole thing. So then it just sort of, when we wrote it, I'm thinking, well, by the time they get coming back around to the second album, this thing will be. But he just kept, it just hung in, as we say, my dad used to say, hung in there like a hair in a biscuit.
Dierks was the one thing, he picked the right first song. I mean, that's a lot he and Brett both, but that first single, you love to see an artist when they put the right song out first, and that song was just, because Dierks, he was never a bad singer, but he's certainly 10 times a singer now that he was even when he started.
Right. But you're talking about a song that just says, this is exactly who I am.
That's exactly right.
Right now.
And he nails it. It was a hit from the time it started till it ended.
you're going to evolve, but but this is who I am. Probably the perfect best one ever was Gretchen Wilson, Redneck Woman.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you knew her, you just went,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
You want me to tell you a funny story about that? I was
Yeah.
in Omni. I was producing a bunch of demos back in those days for Diane Warren, who's probably one of the biggest songwriters ever to live. And she'd send me little work tapes, and I'd work them up. And Gretchen sang a ton of those things. Gretchen and Jason Seller sang almost everything I was doing then. And Gretchen came into Omni, and she said, I want to play you something. And she played me the demo that she and John had made of Redneck Woman. And I was like, wow. And she literally, in the middle of that song, got a call from the bank that they were sending a repo guy to get her car out of the parking lot. And she had some colorful words to say through the phone. Imagine that.
Yeah.
And
that's why she's Redneck Woman and not woman.
That's right. I always thought it was hilarious. And she lived way out. I would take her work tapes. She lived way out in Lebanon, by the McDonald's out there on that farm road. This house in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
Looked like Oklahoma. And I'd take him out there, and she would walk out to the mailbox barefooted. She didn't have a baby on her hip, but when I heard that line on there, I thought, man, that is so her. But, man, she's funny.
We talked a little bit about your upbringing and being around, growing up with all this music in your home. Mm-hmm. And how is that different than the home that your kids grew up in, and why?
Where my dad and all them would kind of be around and music be playing, I can't say that music played as much. You'd have to ask them. I can't imagine that they heard as much music as I did, because I didn't sit around. I'm a kind of like, I get home, I get off the clock, and so much what I do is in my head. I tell people all the time, they say, oh, you got an office? I said, yeah, between my ears. Mm-hmm. And you should see the mess in there.
At Hamstein, I used to come over to your place, and you had 2 chairs and a table, and there wasn't one thing on the stark naked wall, and that stark naked light bulb, that Alan Jackson song, it reminded me of your writer's.
No, I mean, no, and I don't care. They go, oh, why don't you put all your stuff on the wall? And I said, we're starting over. It's here. It's now. Yeah. We're trying to do something right here, right now. And so that'd be an interesting question to ask them.
Well, that's the answer I was going for. Your life is just a little bit different, and what you're influenced by, and the way that music is made, and all of that.
In the future, I had a young writer ask me. He had his computer and he's building tracks and he's doing all this stuff. He's an incredibly talented guy, and he said, if you were my age, would you come here and do songwriting? Because all the issues with how to getting paid and all that kind of stuff. And I said, I don't know. I said I would have grown up in a different time, and I would have had different influences, and I wonder if, though, in the core of my DNA, would there be something that would be, I said, but you don't know. I don't know. My kids probably answer that one better, but I don't, it was a long time before I hung anything on the wall at all. Because first I started with Baby's Got Goodbye, and I didn't have another hit for like 5 years. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want, people come in and go, well, you sure like George Strait. Mm-hmm. A tribute to one song. And it's like, I say, I feel like a one-trick pony.
Yeah,
right. So I wouldn't hang up anything. I said, not until I get one more. So I get one more, and then I get another one. I say, no. Finally, my wife was redecorating, and they were like, hey, we want to hang up something. This is your office. We want to hang up something. So, and for the listeners out there, not going to necessarily, but to me, BMI awards. Mm-hmm. That's... Yeah. If I was a baseball player, the one stat I would care about is RBIs. Mm-hmm. I knocked in a run. Mm-hmm. However I got it in, I could bunt it in, I could knock it over the fence, I could do anything, RBIs. So to me, BMIs were, I had a hit. Mm-hmm. They give out a thing for the 50 most played songs every year. So as I had one of those, I knocked a run in, so to me. So
whether it was a home run or a base hit, it was still a hit. Mm-hmm.
It didn't matter.
RBI.
It's an RBI. Right. That was to me, right? So I go, okay, well, hang my BMIs, hang up some BMIs. So they're in there and they go, then.
So you got a big gold necklace and you hung them around your neck.
So I hung them around my neck. I took a little picture. I have like a little wallet, and I show people on Instagram. I don't Instagram. I want to die with no one ever having said, did you see what Tony Martin tweeted? It's like no one will ever say that. And so they had, the wall, and they go, okay, pick out whatever it is, 10 or whatever the number was that you want to hang up. What's your favorite songs? And I went, I don't want to pick that. Mm-hmm. and going, well, what do I said, well, which ones you want to hang? I said, well, all of them. They're hard.
Yeah.
I want them all up there. If one's up there. So they go, okay, well, they had to reconfigure everything and get on the 2 walls. It's going to be a lot tighter. It's going to be, it's just going to look like I'm totally into calligraphy, right? All these certificates. Right. And so they got it all up there. And then when they were doing it, I went, wait a minute, I need space in here. And they said, what? I said, I don't want these to be my last ones. I still want to do this.
Yeah.
I still want to do this, So leave me some room somewhere where I got space to hang something else.
Let me ask you this. So we're 2 generations away from disappearing unless we write.
Oh, yeah.
So,
and you think 2? How long is a generation?
Well,
a year? Are you going 2 years?
I consider we know a thing or two about our great-grandparents. We know quite a bit about our grandparents, more than we want to about our parents. But our great-great-grandparents, we don't know anything.
No.
So you're whatever those...
Well, they're names on something, and you might get a little of this or a little of that.
If you do genealogy. I mean, that's only if. Otherwise, they're just, you're just gone. So...
If it wasn't for the church, I don't know that, how much, I love my family and immediate, but once you get out of that first circle, I even remember going to like family reunions and meeting cousins and just go, oh, so we have the same grandpa. See you in 2 years.
Right.
Yeah.
But my question is, are you proud of what you've left, and are you done? What else do you want to leave?
I'm not ashamed. I don't know about proud or anything like that. I like what I've done. I can play it and not be embarrassed. I don't think I have anything. I used to tell Tom Shapiro, I'd say, boy, I wish I'd get one of my mediocre songs cut. And he patted me, he goes, check that box off. You did it. You did it. And but what I want to do, I kind of like keep it in like what I want to do next. I like radio, and to me Spotify's radio. It's just you do it yourself. You're your own programmer. But I still like a hit out there that's out. You're in this little room and you're doing this thing, and then it goes off and it has this whole other life. It's nothing to do with you anymore. I don't have anything to do with making it a hit. Nothing. Other than what I wrote. I'm done. It's handed off. And then, this is kind of how we hear it. But then an artist takes it and they sing it. And then there's an army of people doing their thing. I love those people. And then I just show up, which for me is like, now with direct deposit, but it used to be a walk to the mailbox.
Right.
And so I still love being in the room.
Yep.
That little square room, looking out the little square window, as I call it, or at the little square screen.
Trying to create something out of 3 minutes of silence is a pretty awesome.
Yeah, it starts with nothing. And there is this cool moment, and you've been in it, you're co-writing, you're doing something, and you create something that's so cool, and you go, oh, I should love this. And for that moment, you're the only 2 people on the planet know exist. That and the other people in the next room who wish you would not bang it out so loud. But
speaking of loud, for everybody who wonders what that beep, there's construction going on, but I swear somebody is just backing a dump truck in a circle around this building.
I thought it was symbolic of me because I keep backing up this conversation every time. We ask him one thing about the song and he talks about 20 things that got nothing to do with it.
Shapiro at his Hall of Fame induction, in his speech, he said something I thought I'll never forget. And he said, every songwriter, every creative person, and all the insecurities that come along with it, we all just sit around for a lot of years wondering if we're any good.
Oh, yeah.
And he right after that, he said, maybe this is some kind of indication that maybe I'm good.
Yeah. And
I thought that was a pretty sweet thing. It takes a lifetime for a writer to come to
even if I thought I was good today, I might not think it tomorrow. But at some point I go, look, I know how to make a song. I understand certain things, and it's took a lot of years. I've been doing this over 30-something years, and I'm just like doing it and doing it. I get up every morning, I do it. It's just but at the same time, I'm asking for a lot of things to happen besides that. Before I even get it out into the world, I got to go, did I get the right melody with the right feel, with the right words, with the right idea? It's like, I used to say it's like a slot machine, but instead of getting 3 or 4 across, you got to get like about 50 that have all got to go bang, 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 bang in there.
And after that, like you said, once you turn it out, you can't control anything, so you got to control that part.
They're children.
Yeah.
They go out there. Yes, there's a point in your life when your children will fire you as their manager. And your hope is to retain a consulting role which I think is what they do to find out the opposite of what they're going to do.
Right.
Kind of thing.
Sometimes the dumbest people make the most money in this business, and I'm not referring to anybody in this room because we're all brilliant, but what I mean by that is you have to be smart enough to be dumb, and you have to be smart enough to be common, and it's always been fascinating to me that you can get a degree in music, undergraduate degree, master's degree, doctorate, and no one will ever ask you the question, how does it feel to play this chord progression and these words and this melody over that chord progression, or how does it feel to hear that? And that's the only thing that makes anybody buy or stream anything. That's how it feels.
No, you don't move them, you don't catch them, they don't identify. You're gone.
Which makes a regular guy or girl be able to do this.
Yeah.
Business. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And going back to the smart thing, the question I would ask is it just different kinds of smart?
That's right.
Just some people are plugged in and know. Like, I've seen people just get on really good runs and they're writing lots of songs that everybody identifies right then, but it's sort of like, but if you know them, you go, well, that's just you, man.
Well, I think we grow up with, we grow up thinking that a composer is like Mozart and he has to be this thing. He's like Einstein, just his brain's but boiling, and just with the lightning shooting out of it. But the truth of the matter probably is that Mozart was probably like, man, I can do this stuff with my eyes closed upside down and backwards that I'm going to get played in this church over here. But the smarts is him learning how to do that where it made a living, and we're still talking about him. That's
I don't know. Sometimes you kind of know when I go, okay, there's this level, and I know once I get over that. But I don't necessarily always know once I'm over that level if I've crossed over into the next, like broke through. Mm-hmm. It's not till it goes out in the world and they give you this back.
Yeah.
I see a lot of young artists, you'll go to a show and the stars up there singing their song and they're just watching the stars sing their song. This is the moment in their life they have dreamed and worked so hard, sacrificed for. And I will tell each one of them, turn around, you're missing it. Mm-hmm. Turn around and see the thousands of people singing your song. You're going to get a real good understanding of what it is you're going for. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
That there's this universal connection. And y'all up on stage, you play, you see it, it's facing you.
Yep.
And you know when it's working and when it's not, when you kind of got their attention and when you don't, when you're moving them, when you don't.
It's always cracked me up, too, the country music listeners, because, these are my people. This is where all my relatives, this is where we all come from. But when you used to go to the old fanfare, especially on the fairgrounds in the old days, there was this river of people that would go around the audience. Remember, come down there, you can get close to the stage and take their picture. Yeah, while the artist is playing. And you look at this river of people, and they look like Gatlinburg. They're like cameras bouncing off their bellies, and some of them don't have many teeth. And individually, they don't look like the most brilliant people in the world. Some of them, but collectively, the country music audience is the smartest organism that I think I've ever seen. They know an outsider coming in, somebody coming in and try to get an easier way in country music. They know imposters, and they know what's real.
Yeah, I once again, like smart, like you may not think somebody's smart, but brother, he's the guy you want when your toilet ain't working.
That's exactly right.
I accidentally drove. I was down in Florida, and we were down this little vacation. Went down, picked up some barbecue, and for all the dumb reasons in the world, I don't know why, I just dropped it in drive and drove the front left wheel right over a railroad tie that was in the parking lot to keep people from just driving straight through. And I dropped it over the top of that thing and couldn't get it out of there to save my ever-loving life. Finally, some guy we were calling, tow trucks, and a guy comes down there. He doesn't look. I wouldn't have him do my taxes in a minute, but buddy, he solved that problem like that.
Yeah.
I just like, dude, I said, you're a genius. Mm-hmm. To be able to, he just looked at it and figured it out. I said, have you ever, do people do this all the time? I was waiting for him to go, I do this. I go, no, you're the first one to do this down here. At least down here. We'll put you in the newsletter and kind of tell people.
That reminds me, this may be a silly thing to do, but I did something that was really glad I did yesterday. I heard that there was a baptism going on at church, and I didn't have any idea who the person was, didn't even know somebody was getting baptized. I just saw the thing on the Facebook page yesterday, and I decided just to go. Went home, threw on a suit, went over there at 7 o'clock, and I didn't know the person from a completely different congregation, was their buddy, and I didn't know this woman, and I didn't know the woman who was getting baptized or her daughter, which was one of the coolest things, I think, it was a great benefit to me because to go in not having any connection to the people.
Right.
And to see the ordinance of baptism and to see somebody making that covenant with God and doing that thing touched my heart so much. And the friend of this woman who was baptized was a bus driver for Williamson County. And you could tell she probably had never given a talk before. I mean, she did everything wrong and everything was right. And so what you're saying about different people, I think we see that in the church as well. We see people who don't do anything by the book, and they still teach with power and bring us, Well,
the trick's always to try to see, people how Christ would see them, right? Mm-hmm. You're doing it, and it's hard sometimes to see that, but you have to stop and go. All souls are great. They have great worth, and you're trying to see it. How the Heavenly Father, how Jesus Christ sees them. And I think now, when you do, now you got a chance of connecting. Mm-hmm. Now you got a chance of communicating. You certainly are going to do a lot better hearing, and stuff. And in our business of writing, we're communicating, right? Mm-hmm. Well, it starts with hearing. You're just kind of plugged into the world, and you're just hearing things and going to something funny. I get people all the time will tell me, "Oh, that'd be a great country song, or that'd be a great song,
Sure.
Tyler. That'd be a great song." I hear that all the time.
Yeah.
And finally, one guy told him, I said, "That's why you sell insurance." That's not a great title. Were you on that? Did we sit on some kind of like a panel for a youth conference one time, and it was like Trevor Maddich?
We did. Was that at BYU?
We did.
Or was that here?
I think I won down in Franklin one time, but I did one in BYU, but I think I remember Dan there. Mm. I know for a lot of the things they bring me out, and when they start talking about the music business and stuff, I never get invited back because, I won't say it's easy. I won't say you can do it from there.
Yeah.
Now, the future may come where you can do it from wherever, but at the time,
Billie Eilish did it from her bedroom, so it can be done, but it doesn't seem.
But she's still in L.A. talking to people. You still, you got to connect. You can't just sit out. Look, if there was any way that you could just sit in your own house and never leave it and do it, I would have found it.
Elvis had to get off the Delta and come to Memphis. I mean, it's you have to
and
go
maybe you
where it's
won't have to do that, but you still got to make connections and what have you. Sure. But we were at the one, and this kid asked, and I was thinking you were there, but it was like Trevor Maddich, the ESPN guy.
I remember that. Mm-hmm.
And this young boy said, well, I really want to be a drummer. I love to drum. I just want to be. That's what I would like to do. But you know how the music business is, and I can't do it and be a good member of the church. Mm-hmm. And I was just it depressed me because number one, I'm here. Jason's here. We're all here as what members of the church and stuff. Mm-hmm. It just kind of depressed me. I said, why? It's going to be an automatic, you're a drug addict or something? I said, it's not necessary. You don't think they have those on Wall Street or in hospitals or anywhere like that? I said, so I didn't that really bothered me, that you can't, that there's good, honest professions you can't be just because you think it's going to be that. Yeah. Now, maybe if you do have a personal issue, then maybe you got to figure out a way to do it or something. But
well, here's the honest truth. You were probably the earliest successful music business guy that was solid LDS that I knew, and Dan Truman right after you. But you guys had kind of set a little groundwork before I got to town, and when I got to town, people kind of knew. Oh, you're one of those. So we know, and I tell people all the time, I've been here for 25 years, and one time I came out of a studio into the alley just to catch a breath of fresh air, and an engineer dropped a joint on the ground and stepped on it. Mm-hmm. I have never seen drugs in all my years here, and it's just because people know, they just know I don't do it, so they don't do it around me. And it's not that it's not here, but I don't believe, I'm like you, I don't believe that sex, drugs, and rock and roll is any less in law offices or in dentist offices or whatever.
Yeah, and I don't, just because you put them in one sentence, right. I could put any words in one sentence if you like. You know? But yeah, I would say that, maybe in the beginning I might have saw something here or there I knew, kind of thing. But over time, once they know who you are, Nashville's a nice town. Mm-hmm. It's a really nice town. These are Christian, people. They go to church and they believe, we all believe a lot of the same things. And, and when they know who you are and what you're doing, I remember in the beginning, people would say, well, you like something to drink? And I say, oh, no. And then they go, oh, you got a problem. Because everybody they knew who didn't drink, was recovering. Right. And I go, no, I've never had a drink. Then you became like an exhibit in the zoo. And I go, I really believe I never never had a cigarette, never had a drug. Oh, this is crazy, And they'd be like, wow. But they're very nice in that they're not going to expose you to things that you don't want to be exposed to. They're kind about it. You know, I mean, they're just nice about it. No more than we're going to do that to them.
I've never
to them.
had a sip of coffee in my entire life, but I have seen it and smelled it every morning of my entire life in every writer's room up and down this road because it's everywhere. But
and it gets kind of known because like you have your little office and people come to the office and then they always come into mind when I have one on the row and they would say, well, you got some coffee and stuff like that. And I had a co-writer friend of mine one time goes, trust me, you don't want a Mormon to make you coffee.
I have the same thing.
I didn't have any of it. I said, I don't know anything. You don't bring your own coffee. I don't know anything about
You don't
coffee.
want Mormons to make moonshine. You don't want them to make coffee. But
yeah. And one time I was coming off an exit and it was cold, like snowing. Mm-hmm. And I was on the phone, hands-free, but I was on the phone, I was talking, and we were talking with another writer, and he said, what are you doing? And I had rolled down the window because I was giving some guy there with a sign. He had a little sign. And I was handing him some money. And not to be bragging on me, I don't do it all the time, but I just said, I was doing this. And he goes, what are you doing? Because it was really...
That was me, by the way, thanks.
It was really cold. It was really cold, and he was standing there. But he just had a message on his sign. And I just felt like, someone said, just give him something. So I gave it to him. And the co-writer, I was on my way there, but he was on the phone. He said, what are you doing? What's going on? I said, I'm giving this guy off the ramp here. I'm giving him some money. He said, I didn't think a Mormon would buy a fella a drink. And I said, his sign said he needed shoes. I'm chipping in on the shoes.
Well, let me ask you this. Is God in country music?
Yeah, I think God's in all music. I mean, it's a shame the devil has a lot of the good tunes, but I think God's in all of it. I think the adversary he perverts the use of everything that God's created. Mm-hmm. Satan's created nothing but a lie. Mm-hmm. That's it, right? Mm-hmm. The father of all lies. That's right. That's all that's being created.
And he mixes it with truth, which is how he gets us.
Yeah, just like that game and stuff. But he wants you to buy the whole lie, right? Mm-hmm. He wants you to buy a whole lie. If I can't sell you the whole lie, I'll sell you part of it. Mm-hmm. If you don't want the big full-on skyscraper of lies, well, how about a co-op over here? Do a little timeshare. Mm-hmm. And so all music's good. I think it all can be good. I've seen people enjoying great little stuff, especially my granddaughters. They'll be enjoying a great song, and I go, I'm not going to tell them it's about something that they don't. Right now, they're just dancing and enjoying the music, the notes. Mm-hmm. But a lot of times, young people would say, sort of like, oh, well, songs are bad. And I go, we got any piano players? No, I would play the piano. I say, go to the piano over there. If you're at church, that's the instrument in church, piano. Mm-hmm. And I said, play the evil note. They'll hit a minor. Mm-hmm. I said, that's a minor. Yeah, that's a minor. I said, it's not. I said, that's in tons of church hymns and stuff. Mm-hmm. I said, play the evil one. Mm-hmm. There's no evil note on there. Mm-hmm. All right, there's octaves and octaves of the same note, and they're all good, and God created all of them. Mm-hmm.
Well, what is it? What is it when you go in the Ryman and you hear Rhonda Vincent or you hear just some amazing piece of music? What is it that literally, I have been in the Ryman when I felt the Spirit as strong as any general conference. Mm-hmm. What is it about those moments in country music that are
the Ryman's acoustics is fantastic.
Yeah.
And probably the next thing why you would have some religious experience is because they have them old wooden pews that are horrible for people like me.
right.
I have no backside.
For sure.
Every church pew in the world has taught me that. Yep. And even the ones with cushion on it, I will figure it out in about 20 minutes. And it's some old-fashioned ones, hard, and you're thinking, how little were these people, And also, there's poles, things in the way. So you go, I got a pole between my legs here. I was like, I'm in the tabernacle.
Yeah, that's right.
I remember the first time I was in the tabernacle as a kid. Mm-hmm. We went cross country, went there, and we got to one, and we all got, you just sit where they sit, and boom. And I did. I had one of those columns right in between my legs. Right. And the one thing I remember from that whole conference, that ain't real marble.
It's hand-painted.
They painted this wood.
That's right.
For me, about 15, 14 years old, I was like, whoa, big discovery.
Brad and I just played that on New Year's Eve again this last year, and that is an amazing conference. The old conference center is amazing.
I think if you're ready to hear it, and I think if there's any kind of truth that the Spirit will say, yeah. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it hits you more You visceral kind of feeling in it. Sometimes it's just a clear thought. I tell people all the time, the whole thing, you'll feel it, it'll tell you in your mind or in your heart, which is great instructions. And I always told the seminary kids or the institute kids that I teach, I just say, what he's basically saying is, in your mind, that's a lyric. In your heart, that's the melody. And if he can tell you in both of those, and it comes together, either one will work, but he tells you they're together, it's just going to have this little, hitting that tuning fork kind of thing. And some hit you more because you're more ready for that, or it's just a clear thought, whatever it is. So I think it can hit you anywhere.
Well, I think it's the fact that it does hit you. In country music, it seems to come, well, especially I'm thinking a lot about live, live things in the Grand Ole Opry, the Mother Church, or in the Ryman, or in any place.
I bet y'all play some venues outside that are fantastic.
Well, we do, and there's that venue down there in the Cumberland Cavern. Down in that cavern, you're a mile beneath the earth, and you can feel the spirit close to hell, I guess you could say. But I think it is the contrast of you go to listen to something that you're not expecting for the spirit to waylay you. You know what I mean? And it shows up anyway because of the moment. And I think that's.
I think it's and the question I would have, but I've had a lot of times that I've sat in church and wanted it. Like I have something going on and I want it and I didn't get it. But then I got it somewhere else. I had a line in the song one time, I went to talk to God on the mountain, but he answered me in a motel room. He's going to answer when the answer, when you're ready and it's right and you're ready for it.
Which reminds me of that, Elijah, where I heard the voice of God, and it wasn't in the wind or in the fire and whatever.
No, it was a still small voice. And I think you got to be. I'm always a little bit worried. I hear the stories where I go, man, and the spirit just shook me, because it's always like the house is on fire. It's like something bad. If the spirit's got to slap you around, I like the still small voice. That means I got time to go. Oh, you sure? Yeah, I'm sure. Okay. Let me go. Let me get a couple things.
And get a snack. Part of this whole thing that President Nelson is getting us to focus on something it's amazing that we haven't done it before now, but it's really an amazing thing, this personal revelation thing of hey, you're worthy and capable, and as a son of God or a child, a daughter of God, you have a right to.
Why wouldn't your father want to talk to you?
That's exactly right.
Why wouldn't you want to have that communication line open? But now I know I want to talk to you and I want to help you and I want to do it, but I sent you to school, I sent you to college. You're here for a reason. I'm not going to take it all away from you, but it's going to be okay. He does want to communicate that to you, I think. And you feel it, and I think the more you kind of open and looking for it. But President Nelson, each one has come in and they put a new emphasis, and it makes everybody look at everything new again, which is always great. But if you look at this, hear him thing that he's talking about, or get your personal revelation. Well, how great is that working right now with the coronavirus, in which a lot of people in Asia are not going to be able to go to church for a little while. So, but you're not cut off.
Food storage is starting to make a little sense, isn't it?
You're not cut off. Yeah. As long as it's like that, like what I would really eat. I mean, I've every time we moved, I moved like these. What are they? 100? They're 50 pounds. What are they?
I don't know.
Of wheat. And I would move like a wall of it, just like I remember one time a workman
what do you
came
do
in,
with this stuff?
A workman came in and go, "Are y'all running a bakery?" And I've always thought, when I got a little older, I thought, boy, I hope nothing really bad happens. We have to crack into that crack wheat and eat it.
Where's a 400-pound can of Captain Crunch?
We are going to be in trouble. Boy, our digestive systems are not, ready for that.
But back to the surprise. This is my favorite thing about this whole. I mean, my favorite thing about exploring in the Joseph album back when we were doing that thing a long time ago is exploring or teaching Doctrine and Covenants and exploring the main characters of the Restoration of the Gospel is that they, you're blind if you don't see that there was a surprise element to, Emma had imperfections, Porter Rockwell certainly seemed to have some imperfections, Joseph had them, they all had them, but the Lord didn't let their imperfections get in the way of what he needed to do. And I think back on this thing of country music, I don't want to name any artists, but I've known a lot of big artists. You've known a lot of big artists. You had them in your home even as a kid. And you see that some of them are even crass and just nasty people, but they are still powerful people that can still deliver. They can be believers. They can live in some way that's not even exactly right in some cases, but they can still do something to make your heart pound God to speak to you.
Some of the ones who are the most, whatever you could, crass or crude or whatever, would be the first ones to stop and help you. I've always just like, just to have something around or whatever, you just, I would have it in my car, whether it was a Book of Mormon or anything. I'm not going to even ask anybody. But if they ask, I had it, right? I've never
Conversation piece.
I've never handed one over to anybody who didn't have to put a cigarette back in his mouth.
Yeah. Well,
it just doesn't. People are searching, and sometimes they're searching this way, sometimes they're searching that, but I think all God's children are searching, and they're trying to figure the whole thing out. And maybe sometimes they don't have their. I was asking this question that day. How much do people really change? And I go, I don't know, but I do know they change priorities. And when you change priorities, it's amazing how much to the outside it really looks. So you take Peter. Peter's on the road to Damascus to ruin people, right? He's persecuting the church. Christ shows up, boom. What's the difference? I mean, he was going 100 miles to the left. He sees Christ. His priorities are totally changed. He goes 100 miles an hour to the other, in the opposite direction, with simple priorities. But was Paul changed, or was Paul the same? Paul was 100 miles an hour all the time. He was going to do all of it. He was a firm believer the whole way. So I wonder how much that is. It's just some things can come along and just change, and then you're in, and can have a big change in your life.
Yeah. Brad and I have talked a million times about this, running around doing concerts or firesides or ministering, home teaching as we used to call it. I mean, anything is not always convenient. It's not always fun. It's not always whatever. And the question of we've talked about, why do you do that? Why do you go minister? And the thing is that there's something that each of us every once in a while can give somebody that they can't get anywhere else. They can't get it from the pulpit, from scripture, from general conference. They can't get it from this and that. And we give it to them by possibly some weird thing that we do, or that's just different from everybody else. I'll never forget being on my mission. And I had pretty much the gift of gab. I could sell water by the river, but I remember once I was in an area and taught and banged on these people's doors, showed up and was at their house all the time and for months, and I could not get them to move, could not get them to move one step closer. Moved out, and the biggest nerd in the entire mission moves in there, and in 2 weeks he's got them wanting to be baptized, wanting to do anything he wanted to, and I thought, man.
And you felt like the guy who, he opened the mayonnaise jar over there, and you're going, because
right. But then somewhere down the line, I was the same thing. I moved into somewhere else and did something that the last guy couldn't do.
Because you're nothing but an instrument.
That's right.
The Lord's working with them.
That's right.
And it isn't about who's going to do it. You're just going to be there to witness it maybe some of the time or something like that.
And people is why the gospel is wonderful and why the church is terrible. People hate organized religion because of the people, but we love the gospel because of the people. It's this strange dichotomy,
Well, I say in the music business all the time, they say, well, how long you going to be? I say, well, if I stay in the music business, it's going to be because of the people. When I leave, it'll be because of the people. At some point, you just go, I don't identify anymore. I'm kind of past my prime or whatever, I don't think you get away from that. The church is just a building. I used to say all the time, going to church makes you no more a Christian than standing in a garage makes you a car. Right? You bring that to that building, and you designate that building as a gathering space. But that space can be anywhere. The Spirit can be anywhere, and you can do these things, and you can be an example. I know, like, for me, a lot of times, the question I get a lot of times is they'll go, what does your church believe? What do you, and as they're discussing these things, and you get to throw you get to kind of the way you look at it, or the way that, we've been given to look at it.
That's a great point. I think one of the blessings of growing up, I hate the word mission field, and you do too, but growing up outside of the mothership, as I call it, is being around a lot of different churches, is that if you don't believe that God is alive and well and active in the lives of people who are members of other congregations or other denominations, you're blind and you're not awake. It may be this or maybe that, may be different from this and that, but God is alive and well in many other religions.
We're all His children. I had one person came to me one time and he goes, well, you know what, I'm okay with you, Mormon. I'm all right with you. I mean, I think you're going to hell, but you think I'm going to hell. And we all think Jim's going to hell. But it's sort of like, and had a Jewish friend there, and who was standing there, and I said, I don't believe that. I don't believe you're going to hell. I don't think Heavenly Father, I think we're all His children, and I think He works with all of us at whatever speed we can go or wherever we're at, and that's why He has all of this out here to work with everybody. It's not a one-size-fits-all. And, sort of kind of had a conversation about it, and later a Jewish friend of mine said, so you don't think I'm going to hell? And I said, no. He said, well, everybody else thinks I'm going to hell. And I said, well, I'll be the guy not surprised to see you when you get there.
Yeah.
I just don't think I don't think which one of your children has done anything wrong enough that you want to torture them forever.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's nothing in any of it. Christ never taught any of that stuff, so I think there's good in all of it. There's, everybody's got.
Well, and if you don't show.
Some are better at some than others.
If you don't show respect for the ways that other people are leading people to Christ or being led to Christ, if you don't show respect for their religion, they're never going to show respect for yours. And historically, we have what I'd call a huddle-up mentality with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
We circled the wagon.
We did, and we had to. We had to for historical reasons and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And then once we got out to, our island out there, which was not even part of the United States at the time that we got there, the huddle up really became, and the mystery really became something, and not everybody was welcome out there. And I think that is where people are like, you guys must be. That's where we become threatening, I think, because out of a swamp in 5 years built a city that was rivaled Chicago in size at the time. That's like, man, these guys are scary. You know what I mean? Because they're scary.
Well, you've got a power base, you got a political base, which can be scary. I grew up here. My mother was from Utah, was from the Woods Cross, Bountiful area. My dad grew up in Georgia and was different faith, Baptist, and all that family. So I saw both sides, and I used to tell when I was a bishop, when they talk, people were like, I'm afraid to say anything, who I am or anything. I said, well, it's illegal to kill you now, right? I just want you to know you don't have to worry about that if that's what's got you. But I think people, by seeing good people and knowing who they are, like I don't like to go out at night. I kind of stay home, but the awards and you go to those things, and I didn't even want to go to the first one for Baby Scott and Goodbye. And my dad goes, you need to go. I said, why? I got to go. Just somebody else go get it for me and bring it back. And he goes, no, what you need is they need to see a success, like a song, with a name, with a face. So let them see that. Right? Then they know, got a better idea, because they're not going to see you all the time, but they'll know. And then the next time when they see that success, they say, okay, there's the song, there's the name, there's the face, and they kind of know who you are and kind of what to expect and everything. And I kind of took that to the same thing as being, a representative of Christ and this church and stuff like that. Here's what I am, here's my name, here's my face. Now, this is what I am. And nobody, here in Nashville, nobody's been nothing but respectful to me. And I'm respectful to them. It's just we all love Christ, and we're all following Him, and we want to do good things, and we want to have. Look, at the end of the day, what is it? Good people doing good things for people. Period.
Done.
Can I say, that's what it all is.
Well, let me ask you. So somewhere out there, right now, there's somebody in some neck of the woods who is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but they're not feeling too at home there these days, and they're maybe a fence sitter, you could say, and they can go either way. What does Tony Martin tell them?
So this situation, they're not sure whether to be in or out or anything like that.
They can go either way.
Yeah.
Well, why stick?
I've got. I think a lot of young people are in that type of situation, and then they hear me, and then they go, okay, well, I just figure we're looking at the same thing, and they're coming to their conclusion, and I'm coming to mine. And what I usually like to point out to them is I've got 30 or 35 or 40 years on you, all right, even more, of experience. And so I'm going to tell you, it's worth it. What if the whole thing is believing something and sticking to it, You've seen the fruits of it. You see there's good in it. And another thing I would tell young people a lot of times, too, is I just say, look, other people are telling you this, well, that's what you got's no good, and you don't, but they're not giving you anything to replace it. I would never let somebody take away something of me that was valuable without giving me something that's of equal or better value. You wouldn't sell your skateboard like that. Let somebody just take it from you without giving you a better skateboard, because you love skateboards. So kind of like give yourself a chance to see this stuff in action. Most of the time, if you're sitting there and you're on the fence, I would go, what are you doing? There's a reason why Christ says serve people. You know why you serve people? You love who you serve. You love who you serve. And that's just going to happen. Why do you think mothers love their kids so much? They serve. They do nothing but serve them, and so they love them no matter what. I had a friend. He had a friend in prison. He said his friend in prison told him, said, "Man, when you're in prison, man, just hope your mother doesn't die, because that's the only person that's going to come visit you." Wow. And that's sad.
Yeah.
That's sad. But why? She loves them. She loves them. I think Christ loves them. Well, that's as close to Christ-like love, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And then you're sitting down here. Don't give up. Don't get what is the world going to give you that's better value than that? Right? You're thinking of the short-term thing. I just wouldn't give it up, because I don't see anything out here of value in the world that is in conflict with my belief and my values of any value that has any lasting value.
Yeah, I mean, I have people I'm related to that I've had conversations with that they want to believe that Jesus is easy, that it's an easy thing. That it should, if you go to a church and they got a drum set and they make lots of loud, crazy music, and you just kind of go in there and worship for an hour and get out of there. And the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is not that. So it's possible that it might not be for everybody all the time. Because we all kind of go up and down the top. Because it takes your ask Brad Hull. You've been a bishop before. Ask Brad Hull right now how much of his time. And I've seen it in Brad's eyes. I've seen it in Brad's eyes at the same time that he was facing, how am I going to do this? Well, he's filled with the Spirit, and he has this love and this compassion for these people, and he wants to spend his time there.
When you go into this service mode, and look, Brad, now there's no reason why you should be bishop over anybody else. When they call anybody a bishop and it ain't me, I got both hands up. And so like, yeah. But you do get a front row seat to some loneliness in the world, and people going through, and everybody's going through the thing. Some show it, some don't. But you talk about thinking that Jesus is going to be easy. Then if anybody wants to believe that, tell them, do not read the scriptures, because you're not going to see it. It's not in there. Yeah. It's not in there. But what he tells them is, just stick with me. Because Peter said, denies 3 times. He thought he could get it. I'll go with you. I'll do the whole thing. But Christ knew you're not going to be able to do that. You're not ready. God knew with Joseph Smith. And come back every year. You're not ready. Even let him do some things that you go, boy, if you want to keep the gold record safe, you really shouldn't have gotten involved with that, And, right. And why have him running around, dodging people, trying to hold it and stuff like that? Because it's still a learning lesson. Joseph needed to learn. He's doing something great, but he still has a life. He has to get something personally from this and learn from his mistakes and learn and grow. I think there's something great in that. There's something fantastic in that. Even my son told me, my young son, he is like the most gregarious guy. He's fun to hang with, okay? But he's water. He's going to seek his own, he goes down the easiest deal. But he would tell me, the best coaches push me and make it hard and make it harder. And if they didn't, he wouldn't do it. Yeah. So you got to be able to do that to yourself and just go, look, how much is this going to count if when I've got my moment of doubt, that I go, I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to cross. I mean, Martin Luther King said that. I think one of his things where he described faith that I always liked was taking that first step down the stairs where now it's dark and you can't see the next step. You can't, and you got to step down into it. I think you can get the culture mixed up with covenants, and you can kind of like, well, I don't like this style over that style, or doing this or that, and maybe young people see that. They got the world out there coming on their phones and their screens, and these are great things. They are speeding up things, but it's also speeding up other things too. It's a hard thing, and some of them, what if that's what they got to go through to get there? I hate to say it, but sometimes, man, what if you've got to go through this period where you go, hey, I'm going to go off, and not to go one day look up and go, hey, I don't like where I am. When's the last time I remember knowing, feeling good and where I was headed and what have you, and go, okay, it's back there.
Yeah. Well, isn't stepping away from God's plan in one way or another, or one degree or another, part of his plan for all of us?
Yeah.
And he said, I prepared a way back because I knew you would.
That's right.
I knew you would. So if I take one step over here, going with what you're saying, Brad, I take one step this way, but this other guy takes 20 steps. Well, it's all the same, isn't it? One step going wrong. And I'm not saying there's not a lot of ways to live. We're talking about like sin or what's right and wrong and everything. Like there's nobody's got a worse sin. Your sin's worse than my sin. Well, they're all kind of bad. And they're not sin bad, like everybody kind of feels judged when you say, oh, what you're doing is a sin. I'm going, no, everything that is not heading you in this direction is not good. Just the same as if you're going to be in the music business. Well, at some point, you might want to pick up a guitar and learn to play it. You might want to focus a little bit. It might mean that you don't go do this other activity and you do this activity instead.
Yeah.
Right? In America today, you can do anything, right?
Absolutely.
If you work hard, you can pretty much cover it, but you can't do everything. And when I grew up, I remember nobody said I could do anything. They just said, hey, if you sacrifice and you work real hard, you might make something of yourself. And I think that might be closer to the truth and stuff. And I think, hey, you want to understand Christ? You want to understand it? If you sacrifice and you put in the effort, you might get to where you're going to understand it, and then you'll do some more and you'll understand a little more, and then you'll think you got something, and dang, if you ain't got to relearn that thing, because humans have to do that. I have to do it. I relearn.
You remember that feeling when you were a kid and you're on your banana seat bike and you're going
with
down
your sissy
a
bar?
big hill? That's right. And you're going down a big hill. And it was like the most free, the wind's blowing in your hair and you're just flying.
And you take your hands off your butterfly handlebars?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Your sister's bike. That's right.
And the wind's blowing through, you wet your feather cut.
That's right, because you just got out of the creek and well,
you're still blonde. I was blonde.
That feeling of running, just running through the grass and the soft grass. That is why we need to listen and to live purely, because everything else are rocks we just put on ourselves that just slow us down and don't let it. I think that's the hard thing to see, for a lot of people when it comes to just the temporal sins that are just right here. The other great struggle seems to be the spiritual, praying for the want to and
because you can't give that to anybody.
Man. That's the hard, including yourself.
Because if you could give it, I would have gave it all to my kids, right? You give it to your kids.
Right.
Well, don't you think your Heavenly Father would give it to you if you could, give you the want to?
I love you saying that, because I believe the biggest lessons that I've ever learned about God is by being a parent, because, my brother 5 years ago took his own life, and he had a wife and 4 kids, and was a great human being. He had a disease. He was diagnosed bipolar 18 months before, which explained a whole lot of things to me. But I remember thinking to myself, as your mind goes through all the judgments you've heard your whole life about anybody who would commit suicide. I remember thinking, if one of my children was that desperate for a moment of peace, the first place when they do that, I'm going to be right there to take them into my arms, because that's what a father does. It's and for anybody to think that's escalator up and down, man, I don't know any father in the world that works escalator up and down.
But our spirits are here. They're in these imperfect vessels, and we don't know what everybody's dealing with and how it is. Our personal responsibility is to do the best I can with what I got. But to be in enough pain to where you would say, that's it for me. I have to believe that there's a loving Heavenly Father who's going to be right there.
Amen.
And say, okay, I'm sorry you had to go through that, but let's start moving forward with what you learned and go that you reach that place. But you're not going to be alone very long. So you're going to be right there. I think He's going to work with you there.
Yeah, but knowing that a Father and that a Savior loves you that much, and I mean, we've talked about this a million times, the surety that Jesus is already in the Garden of Gethsemane.
It's done. He's
already been in this room with us right here today, and he's lived the good and the bad.
It's done. It's won. It's a really good book. What's Adam Miller? You reading Adam Miller, Early Resurrection? That's fantastic. Probably a Deseret book.
Yeah.
But he, it's just even reading in the Book of Mormon. To them, Christ was already, it's as if he hadn't even done it yet, but to them, it was done.
That's
the atonement was done and was available to them, right? Even though they were before Him. Well, we're in that now. It's all done stuff, and He's coming back. well, it's done. It's as if
That's
if you
right.
start living like he's here, it's already happening. Then you're getting this. I think Adam Miller, as I put it in Tennessee text, you're already living it. It's already happening. And when you stop everything that you're doing, you stop what you're doing, and you hear your child talk to you, or you help somebody. There it is. That's it. Now you are out of time, aren't you? And I don't mean like ran out of time. I'm talking about you're not now in the present, past, future. It just is.
That's right.
It just is. And when you're serving someone and you're helping someone, you're outside of yourself. You're outside of this limited world and what it is, and your focus is on somebody else and doing something else. That's probably the closest you're going to get to feeling what it's going to be like when this. Everything in this world has a beginning and an end. You're going to go from here to a place that has no end and no beginning. And that's probably the only time in this life when you feel it. It's when you're doing something and your time doesn't matter.
Yeah. My mom, as a mother of 4 boys, used to get mad when people say it takes a village to raise a child, and she's like, "No, you raise your own dadgum child." Because people just drop their kids off the church on Wednesday night and let them terrorize for 2 hours.
No, it takes a village to rat your child out.
That's right.
Do you know what your son did? You give him to me.
But really, I mean, the interdependence of the 3 missions of the church, it takes us all to. I mean, if we're the reason why we all need to be at our best as human beings and as children of our Heavenly Father is so that we can be our best to other people, because somebody out there needs what we can only give. And if everybody does that,
and
we
you're
all
close
take care
enough.
of each other.
Let's say you're standing next to the person and God asks you and you don't, then he's got to go over here.
Yeah.
And then I got to go over here.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people say, well, the Spirit, I would hate to think, the Spirit told somebody to come across town to visit my neighbor. I would feel horrible.
Yeah.
I'm going, I know he tried to talk to me and I wasn't paying attention. Because he's not going to ask him to come clear across town unless he really needed it. I'm not going to limit God, but I would be a little bit afraid that I wasn't paying attention. It'd be like finding out somebody you minister asked somebody else to give them a blessing. I'm going, what?
Yeah.
Why didn't he call me?
The longer I'm a parent and the older I get, the more I realize that Lehi's dream is one of the most brilliant things that's ever been scratched into soft metal. Because it's our measuring stick. You know what I mean? To look at that thought, that concept, and to think where we are, where each of our children are, where our spouses are, where those people that we love and we minister to are in that. And I don't feel, the older I get, I feel no judgment even towards people over in the building. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's important that is such a simple way of knowing where we are.
At the end of the day, every knee bows, every tongue confesses. And there's nothing in that scripture do I hear anybody with their hand on anybody's head, pushing them down on their knee, or their hand up like a ventriloquist. I'm making them say it.
And nobody who's taking the fruit is done in that thing either.
No.
No, it's not even done then. And so when do you arrive? I don't think you do.
Yeah.
It's a process, and you keep working it, and you keep doing this, and you love your neighbor, and you help them, and you try to look. I think people say, to go back to songs, where do you get your ideas from? I used to say a joke all the time when I lived in Hendersonville. I would always say Goodlettsville.
Hey, that's the ward that I'm the bishop of.
Okay. Well, because they say, so where do you get your ideas? And I said, well, when I leave the house, I have nothing.
That's funny.
I have nothing. I've been helping my wife get the kids all off and everything, and then let her go run, and I've fed the last one, and I get in the car, and I'm driving to town, and, okay, I got to come up with some idea. And around about Goodlettsville, I go, okay, well, that might work.
Yep.
And so I would joke about that. But the fact of the matter is, where the ideas come from, they come from everywhere, right? But the antenna's got to be up. I got to be paying attention, and also I got to tune myself what the marketplace likes. I got to be kind of plugged in what other people are looking for, what other artists are, and so I'm looking all the time, ideas all the time, right? Where's that idea to serve anybody going to come from? Well, your antenna's got to be up all the time, and if you're plugged in reading your scriptures, and you're plugged in having this kind of stuff, and you're just there, then it comes, and you recognize it.
It does.
And if you really want to do something about it, when you recognize it, you'll act on it. You won't question yourself. I don't question myself. If I question myself if something's a good idea or not, it's not. It's probably not that good. Or I got a problem. There's I can see I'm going to run into a problem. But helping somebody, where's the problem? There's not going to be any problem.
No.
But you got to be tuned to it. I think what you like you talk about, when you teach in seminaries, I teach in Old Testament. That's when I wrote Jacob's Ladder, It's On Your Head, which had a lot of this biblical kind of language in it. And I wrote a few other things like that because people say, do you read your scriptures every day? What, are you kidding? I teach seminary. Of course I do. I cannot read enough every day. It gets in there. It gets in there, And I think that's what you got to set yourself up to be in that kind of place and hear it.
Yeah. That may be the most valuable thing I've heard you say today for me. Brad, I've seen a big change in Brad in the last 6 months to 12 months, I guess, and no surprise that he's been called to be a bishop, because he came to me a while back and he said, man, I love ministering. I love going and looking into people's eyes and figuring out how I can help them.
Yeah, you said that to some wrong person.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. I'm on that particular day, I was like, what's wrong with you? And but it takes that. But you have to be conditioned, right? You have to want to be a friend. And,
yeah, I think Well, Brad, you're always a nice person anyway. You're a nice guy. That's
nice.
Brad's a nice guy. You wouldn't think anything about calling Brad. Like, well, I don't want to bother Jason, but what about Brad? Yeah, get Brad over here. He'll put some tables up. I know Jason's busy. If anybody needs an iron in the fire, Jason's got about 20 extra ones in the fire.
You can call me and I'll say yes, but it'll be somebody else I've delegated to that's going to be showing up over there.
See, now me, I'm a 3-ball juggler. All right, I can juggle 3 balls. I got my job, I got my family, and I got a calling. Now, if you want to give me another calling, that's fine. But 1 ball will be on the ground at all time, and I promise you, it will not be my family and my job. The job and the family are together. They're a package deal. I can't pay for the one without the other.
My dad told me years ago that we only have one head on the on the top of our body, and you can only wear the church hat, family hat, or the work hat. You can only wear one of them at a time, so you got to figure out that process of. And I remember very well when cell phones. I was 27 years old the first time I had a cell phone, and I remember somebody a little older and wiser than me saying, "Hey, use that cell phone to take that work hat off on your way home, and to get it all out. So when you get home, you've got that family hat on, Because
now you got to do it hands free.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Brad's been trying to talk me into getting one of those mechanisms that sticks to my face all the time,
Well, in a way, having all these things that you need to do, is it not a part of the test of understanding yourself and understanding what you value by having all these really pressing good things that you could be doing? Because I imagine myself getting up there and they go, well, Tony, what'd you love? Oh, I love the Lord and I loved all those things. And say, well, our records indicate you love television. You sure watch a lot of television. I said, well, I was getting ideas,
Because time is love, right?
Well, time is love.
Or YouTube, or this and that. There's so many things that kids can spend their time on these days, and all of us do.
But see, that time, when you make it finite, now you've created this value system. I mean, you go say, what are you going to do with your time? And God says, okay, remember that it was like a slideshow when I was on mission, man's search for happiness.
I remember that.
Right? And it would say something to the fact that, my dad got a line for a song one time in that. It goes, and something about, in this life, sometimes God will let a favorite flower die. It showed like a little girl sick and everything. And my dad wrote a song off of that, back when you could write the most sad country song. Mm-hmm. But I remember it would say, that in that thing, show a little picture, and then it would beep, and you'd change the slide. And it said something to the effect that God's given you time, and He's given you the agency to do what you want with that time. And that was always the most powerful thing to me. It's like, okay, now that's today's vernacular, I would say that's a Spider-Man, that's a Peter Parker moment. Great power, responsibility. Okay, you got this time, you only got so much, and guess what? You don't know how much you got. All right? And what are you going to do with it? Because what you do with it is going to be the biggest indication of what you value and what you think is important. And the problem is, it's how you view anything. It's your priorities. Why did the anti-Nephi Lehis, those who buried their weapons, why would you bury your weapon and be willing to just be run through and say, I'm not going to kill, when they were such good killers before?
Yeah.
Why? Something happened, all right? The Lord changed them, but all you got to do is give them a peek into, here's what is really happening on the other end of that sword. And here's what it really means in the eternities. Here's the ripple. Here's what it feels like. Here's how it's going to affect you. You don't know it now. And, buddy, they had no more disposition to do evil. Imagine that, no more disposition, because something happened in them where they go, I see everything totally different now.
Yeah.
Totally different. And they probably were if they were funny, they were still funny. If they were serious, they were serious. If they worked real hard, but their priorities changed, boy, to the point they said, I would rather be killed than killed. I do not want that. I would rather have that feeling than that feeling.
Yeah.
I think that's a power. I think there's something in that for life.
You trade something. There is truly nothing like the electricity of being 18, 19, 20, 25, 30, 35. There's nothing like the electricity of youth when you got the world by the tail and all the things you learn with that. But the older I get too, there is also nothing about knowing something about being on the other side of that and the things that you know. I mean, I think in a certain way, boys will be boys. We've laughed about this. That certainly after this life, men are going to sit around away from the women in the afterlife and sit around and joke about it. Well, how'd you die? Man, I wish I had a story like that. Somebody's going to have some great story about having their head ripped off by a bear or something. That's going to be, man, that's good stuff.
I hope everybody's story beats mine.
Right.
I want to be in that crowd over there because we were asleep.
Right.
I was asleep.
Right.
And they'll go, oh, it's so nice, look at your career. You got these nominees, you got all these songs, and when you die, they'll say, I said, look, man, that was the only one in that, songwriter, hit songwriter, blah, blah, blah. You can put any adjective they want. I only care about one thing in my thing they write. Died in his sleep. That's the one I want.
But the things when you're older, because you can look back, are you lost some of that lightning. But man, you've gained on what really matters, and I think that's the beauty and the value of.
But haven't you seen all older guys tell the young guys, "Hey, no, that's not worth it. You'll see, you'll get that," and all the younger guys go, "Oh man,
yeah,
you
don't know what you're talking about.
You don't know what you're talking about,
right?"
And it's a cliche for a reason, because it's got to go through. Because I think ultimately you got to learn that yourself.
Right.
And I'm not so sure, even at my age, that if suddenly you gave me back my 18, 19-year-old body, that I would not be playing basketball. I'd be playing basketball.
Yeah.
I didn't quit because I said, I'm sick of this game. I quit because my knee said, I will kill you.
Yeah.
Well, and what they say, you want to make an old man laugh, you tell him your plans, or you want to make God laugh, you tell him your plans. But there are sweet and beautiful conversations to be had with anybody over 80 years old. I mean, I would highly recommend anybody who wants to take a look at their own life or have a little perspective to sit down with somebody whose mind is alert and their body is trash. Because when they get to that point, man, they certainly have some beautiful things that come out of their lips, and that's part of the trade, right? You trade the lightning for the.
Well, I had an older friend of mine. He goes, man, as you get older, man, you just. And he was talking about just in church, work, everywhere. He says, man, you just become invisible. I said, well, I know that they can't hear you. Like me, I'm already at the age where they can't. They might see me, but they can't hear me. I'm talking, and they just go, But I did, a lot of that stuff myself. I liked the old guys when I was young. I always liked the old guys, but because they said funny things and you could use it, and stuff like that. But you didn't have to believe it all.
Yeah, life is a journey. Man, it is something else.
And when my stepmom joined the church, and she was a lot older, my dad was probably 80-something, and she came to church. And, she said a lot of things, she took discussions. She used to try to get my dad to go to different other churches, and he kind of wouldn't go, even though he wasn't that active, but he would, he'd take it to other churches. She'd take him there and said, what about this one? He goes, I already got a church, So she came to me one time. She said, can I just join your church? I said, yeah, you can. We have an open enrollment.
Yeah.
And but anyway, she was taking that, doing all that stuff. But when it was all said and done, and she said the reason, you can go all through this. She had great missionaries. She did everything. The reason she joined the church was my wife's example. My wife is not a talkative person. She's not going to be the one to say it. And if she does say anything, it's going to be very... But my stepmom will tell you this day, says, I just watched her and the way she lived, and I thought that's something's there.
Well, when we teach our kids, now that I have older kids and they're getting older by the minute, it's amazing the things that they bring out in conversations that I thought they missed by
they weren't listening
a mile.
Yeah.
and they're living by them now. You know what I mean?
Well, even when you seminary kids, I was always amazed. I had one kid whose head was on his scriptures all the time. It's just laying there. And then as soon as I upped and made a prize he wanted, he would give me the answer or find the thing. He just had to give him a candy bar, and then all of a sudden his brain worked. That's right. I think it's nice to see, though. I think that you can see the Lord's work in all this of the people of influence and being placed in all these different walks of life.
Yes.
In all these occupations and all these continents and all these.
Well, thank you for pioneering this town for the guys who came after you. Cause
there was some big, my dad, there was Charlie Walker. Church.
Charlie Walker, I know Virginia well.
She was a great friend of my mom when my mom and dad got divorced. She was a fantastic friend. Virginia Walker used to give us free passes to Opryland back when it had the theme park for each gallon of blackberries, because we had tons of blackberries on our farm. And so we'd get one of those and you'll fill it up and give it to her. She'd give us a pass to Opryland.
Thank you, Tony. We love you, brother. Please subscribe to our podcast, Nashville Tribute Band Listening Room, and please share us with your friends. Tell them about our Instagram, our podcast, and of course, our music. And please visit us on our Facebook page, Nashville Tribute Band, and hit that like button. And please take the opportunity to visit our store at NashvilleTributeBand.com for music and merchandise. We'll see you next week. Be good and do good things.
Nashville Tribute Band Listening Room.
You've been listening to the Nashville Tribute Band podcast, The Listening Room, with Jason Deere. Make sure and subscribe to our podcast and share it with your friends. And visit NashvilleTributeBand.com for music, information, and so much more. And make sure and enjoy this podcast each and every week.